The DNA test confirmed the twins were his, but the result everyone expected was the one thing it couldn't give him, the truth. Because when the millionaire opened that report, it didn't match his wife. The genetic markers pointed to another woman entirely. The woman who had been cleaning their house for years. The woman who had been trying to tell him, in whispers and desperate glances, that she was their real mother, and that his wife had stolen them the day they were born. This is the story of a man who had everything: a $10 million mansion, a picture-perfect family, and a secret festering right under his own roof. A secret his wife had guarded for 4 years, and his maid had died a little trying to tell him every single day. So how does a mother steal another woman's children? And what do you do when the person you trusted most is the architect of your deepest betrayal? It began not with a test, but with a whisper. For Daniel Sterling, life looked like a magazine spread. The hedge fund, the Beverly Hills estate, the charity galas with Victoria on his arm, a blonde, sharp-edged socialite who curated their image with military precision. And their daughters, Sophia and Isabella, 4-year-old twins with matching golden curls and laughs that echoed through marble halls. But the picture had a crack, a hairline fracture Daniel noticed in quiet moments. Victoria was a detached mother. She scheduled playdates like board meetings and recoiled when the girls got messy. The twins, inexplicably, didn't look like her, not her eyes, not her smile. When Daniel joked about it once, Victoria's reply was ice. "They take after your side, darling, don't be crude." The heart of the home wasn't Victoria, it was Maria. Maria Lopez joined their household when Victoria was 6 months pregnant. Hired through a premium agency, she was quiet, efficient, and from the first day the twins were born, they were magnetized to her. She was the one who soothed their midnight cries, who knew Isabella hated carrots and Sophia needed 3 kisses before bed. Victoria called it appropriate attachment. But Daniel saw the way Maria's eyes would linger on the girls with a longing that felt deeper than employment. The first whisper came when the twins were 2. Daniel found Maria in the nursery, holding a sleeping Sophia, tears streaking her cheeks. "Is everything all right, Maria?" he asked gently. She jumped, wiping her face quickly. "See, Mr. Sterling, it's just, she has your nose, it's a good nose." Her voice broke. She fled the room. Daniel wrote it off as exhaustion. The whispers became clues. A pediatrician's visit note Daniel found in the trash, mentioning the girl's blood type, O negative. Victoria was a positive. He was O positive. He stared at the paper, a cold knot forming in his gut. It was possible but unlikely. When he asked Victoria about it, she waved a manicured hand. "The doctor must have transposed the files. I'll have my assistant call." Then the night of the blackout. A storm knocked power out across the canyon. Daniel, working late in his study by generator light, heard hushed, frantic Spanish from the kitchen. He found Maria on her knees, clutching a small silver locket, praying. When she saw him, she scrambled to her feet, hiding the locket. "Mr. Sterling, I was just worried for the girls in the dark." "What's in the locket, Maria?" he asked, not unkindly. Her face crumpled. She opened her hand. Inside the locket was a tiny, faded ultrasound photo. The date on it, March 15th, 4 years ago, the twins' birthday. "My daughters," Maria whispered, the words hanging in the generator's hum. "I lost them." Daniel felt a chill that had nothing to do with the storm. "I'm so sorry, Maria. Was it a stillbirth?" She looked directly at him, her eyes holding a universe of pain. "No, senor, they were taken from me." Before he could ask another question, Victoria's voice sliced through the dark. "Maria, the girls are calling for you." Her figure was a silhouette in the doorway. Maria flinched, snapped the locket shut, and hurried away, leaving Daniel with a silent, screaming question. The next day, Maria was gone. Victoria said she'd quit without notice. "These people are so unreliable," she'd sighed, already dialing the agency for a replacement. Daniel tried Maria's cell. It was disconnected. He felt a deep, unsettling wrongness he couldn't name. The final straw was a forgotten iPad. Isabella was playing with it in the den when a notification popped up from a fertility clinic. "Appointment reminder, annual follow-up, Dr. Chen." It was Victoria's account. Curiosity overriding guilt, Daniel clicked. The medical history was clear: unexplained infertility, recurrent implantation failure. The last entry, dated 9 months before the twins were born, read, "Patient exploring surrogate options. Advised legal consultation prior to any arrangement." A surrogate, Daniel's mind raced. Had they used a surrogate? Why wouldn't Victoria tell him? He confronted her that evening, the iPad between them on the dining table. What is this, Victoria? Were we using a surrogate? Victoria's face went pale, then flushed with anger. How dare you snoop through my private medical records? I'm not snooping, I'm asking, our daughters, did we have a surrogate? She stood up, her chair scraping loudly. No, Daniel, we did not. That was an option we discussed and rejected. I got pregnant, naturally, with you, end of story. Her tone was final, brittle. If you're so obsessed with this, maybe you should get a DNA test and put your pathetic insecurities to rest. She stormed out, and her words, meant as a dismissal, became a command. Daniel ordered the kits that night, the most expensive, legally admissible ones he could find. He collected samples with a surgeon's care while the twins slept, a soft cheek swab from Sophia, then Isabella. He took his own, and then, in a moment of dark clarity, he didn't take Victoria's. He took a hairbrush from Maria's old room, still in the staff quarters, sealed in a bag since the day she left. It held strands of her dark hair. He mailed the 4 samples, labeled only with anonymous codes, to the laboratory. The wait was a special kind of torture. 2 weeks where every laugh from the girls felt like a question, every touch from Victoria felt like a lie. Then, the email arrived on a Tuesday morning. Your results are ready. Daniel sat in his study, the door locked, his heart hammering against his ribs. He clicked the link. The PDF loaded slowly. Paternity analysis. Subject A, alleged father, and Subject C, child 1. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. Paternity analysis. Subject A, alleged father, and Subject D, child 2. Probability of paternity, 99.99%. A wave of relief so profound it left him dizzy. They were his. He scrolled down. Maternity analysis. Subject B, alleged mother, and Subject C, child 1. Probability of maternity, 0%. Genetic markers indicate no biological relationship. Maternity analysis. Subject B, alleged mother, and Subject D, child 2. Probability of maternity, 0%. The air left the room. Victoria was not their mother. He forced himself to scroll further to the supplemental comparison the lab ran against the 4th sample. Comparative analysis. Subject E and child 1, child 2. Genetic markers indicate a 99.98% probability that Subject E is the biological mother of both children. Subject E, the hair from Maria's brush. The printed report fell from Daniel's hands, fluttering to the floor. Maria's words echoed in the silence. They were taken from me. He looked at the family portrait on his desk. Him, Victoria, the smiling twins, a perfect lie. And in that moment, he heard the garage door hum open. Victoria was home. Daniel didn't move. He heard Victoria's heels click on the marble foyer, the rustle of shopping bags. His eyes stayed locked on the damning paper on the floor, the DNA report that had just erased his family and rewritten it in the same breath. The door to his study opened. Daniel, why are you sitting in the dark? Victoria flicked the switch, flooding the room with light. She stopped, her gaze dropping to the scattered pages. Her expression shifted from mild annoyance to frozen recognition in a heartbeat. What is that? She asked, her voice dangerously calm. You tell me, Daniel said, his own voice a hollow rasp. He bent, picked up the first page and held it out. The twins are mine, but they're not yours, they're Maria's. Victoria didn't flinch, she didn't cry. She walked to his desk, set down her purse with deliberate slowness and smoothed her dress. When she looked at him, her eyes were chips of blue glass. You foolish man, she whispered. What have you done? Me, a disbelieving laugh tore from his throat. What have I done? Victoria, who are those little girls upstairs? Where did they come from? They are your daughters, legally, socially, in every way that matters. And biologically, morally, Maria lost her children. Did you take them? Don't be melodramatic. You have no idea what you're talking about. She reached for the report, but he snatched it back. I have a genetic fact. I have a woman who worked in our home, mourning her stolen Barbies every day. What did you do? Buy them? Steal them from a hospital? What twisted game have you been playing for 4 years? For the first time, a crack appeared, a flicker of pure, unadulterated panic in her eyes. It was gone in an instant, replaced by a steely resolve. You need to listen to me very carefully, Daniel. If you go to the police with that paper, you will destroy everything, your reputation, your fund, and you will lose those girls forever. The state will take them. They will become wards of the system, stuck in foster care while courts argue for years. Is that what you want? Her words were arrows, each one hitting a calculated target, his fear, his love, his privilege. They're not yours to lose, he managed. A judge will see a wealthy, stable mother and a father who conspired to kidnap children with a hysterical maid. Who do you think they'll believe? She leaned forward, her perfume suddenly suffocating. We are a family, we have a life. We can fix this quietly. Quietly how? By paying Maria off, by continuing this lie. It's not a lie, it's our life, she hissed, her composure finally shattering. I couldn't give you children, I failed, and you would have left me, you would have found someone who could, and I would have had nothing. Maria was pregnant, she was poor, she was scared. She signed a surrogacy agreement. Daniel stared at her. A surrogacy agreement? You expect me to believe that? Where is it? It was private, between us. She took a cash payment and relinquished all parental rights. The girls are ours. If that's true, why did she stay? Why did she look at them like her heart was breaking every single day? Why did she run? Victoria waved a dismissive hand. Regret, seller's remorse. These people are emotional. She wanted more money, I handled it. Every instinct in Daniel screamed that she was lying. The story was too clean, too convenient. It painted Victoria as desperate, not monstrous. But it was a story that could, in a lawyer's office, maybe hold up. He thought of Maria's tears, her locket, her raw terror. That wasn't seller's remorse. That was a mother's grief. You're lying, he said simply. Her mask slipped completely then, revealing a venomous spite beneath. Fine, you want the truth. Maria Lopez gave birth at Cedar-Sinai Hospital on March 15th. She was alone, she was undocumented, she was nobody, and I was Victoria Sterling in the same hospital for a procedure. My doctor knew a woman in distress, a woman who felt she couldn't keep her twins. An adoption was arranged. A private, closed adoption, perfectly legal. I am their adoptive mother. You are their biological father. The paperwork is flawless. Daniel felt the room tilt. My biological father, how? A cruel, thin smile touched her lips. The fertility clinic, your donation years ago, remember, for future use. I used it. I implanted the embryos in her. She was the vessel. She was never supposed to know where they went. But the idiot doctor mixed up the discharge papers. She saw my name. She came looking. And when she saw our life, she decided she wanted it back. The pivot was dizzying. From theft to surrogacy to a twisted, semi-legal adoption using his own frozen genetic material. It was horrifying, but it had the ring of a terrible, plausible truth. It explained the biology. It explained Maria's presence. It painted Victoria as ruthless, but not a kidnapper. So you admit it, Daniel breathed. You used my sperm to impregnate a vulnerable woman, took her children, and then hired her to clean their toilets. That's your defense. It's not a defense, it's a reality, and it's a reality you are now part of. Tear it down, and you tear down yourself. She picked up her purse. I'm going to check on the girls. Think about what you want your life to look like tomorrow. The family man, or the man who broke his own family to pieces for a maid. She left, closing the door softly behind her. The silence was deafening. Daniel sank into his chair, his mind reeling. Was she telling the truth? Could any of that be legal? The cold, tactical part of his brain, the part that built a hedge fund, engaged. She had presented a narrative with just enough cover. A private adoption with his biological children. It was grotesque, but it was a fortress. And then he thought of Maria's face the night of the blackout. They were taken from me, not I gave them up. Taken. He needed to find her. He needed the other side of the story. And he needed to do it without Victoria knowing. His first call wasn't to a lawyer. It was to his head of security, a former FBI agent named Leo Cruz. Leo, I need you to find someone, quietly. Her name is Maria Lopez. He gave the scant details he had, her age, her likely neighborhood from her employment file, her disconnected number. Priority 1, Daniel, what's the context? Family emergency, she may be in danger, and Leo, my wife cannot know you're looking. The line was quiet for a moment. Understood. The next 48 hours were an exercise in surreal normalcy. Daniel played with the twins, their innocent joy a physical ache in his chest. He sat across from Victoria at dinner, a chasm of silence between them. The house was a beautiful prison. Leo called on the third day. I found her. It wasn't easy. She's living in a converted garage in Panorama City. She's scared, Daniel. When I approached, she tried to run. I had to show her your picture on my phone. She agreed to talk, to you only, tonight. That evening, Daniel told Victoria he had a late work dinner. The lie tasted like ash. He drove across Los Angeles, from the manicured canyons into a grid of flat, crowded streets. The garage was behind a weathered bungalow, accessible by a narrow alley. A single light glowed behind a curtained window. Maria opened the door before he could knock. She looked smaller, thinner, her eyes huge in her face. She said nothing, just stepped back to let him in. The space was clean but bleak. A hot plate, a mattress on the floor, a small table. On the wall, taped carefully, were crayon drawings of two little girls. They were crude, but he recognized the blue dresses. Sophia and Isabella. Maria, he began, his voice cracking. Thank you for coming, Mr. Sterling, she said formally, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. You got the test. I did. I'm so sorry for everything. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. You have questions. I need to know what happened. Victoria told me a story about an adoption, about my genetic material. Maria let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. An adoption, is that what she calls it? She walked to a small tin box on the shelf, unlocked it, and pulled out a folded piece of paper, worn soft at the creases. She handed it to him. It was a hospital discharge summary from Cedars-Sinai. Patient, Maria Lopez, delivered, twin girls, healthy. At the bottom in the notes section, scribbled in messy handwriting, was one line, patient informed of infant fatality, one twin deceased, other transferred to NICU for observation, grief counseling offered. Daniel's blood ran cold. What is this? This is what they gave me when I woke up, Maria whispered, her voice trembling. I was exhausted. They gave me something for the pain. I held my girls for 1 minute. Then they took them to clean them. They said I fell asleep. When I woke up, a different doctor was there. He was very sorry. He said there were complications. He said my baby girl, Sophia, did not survive. He said Isabella needed special care. I was screaming. I demanded to see them, to see my Sophia's body. They said it had already been taken care of. For my health, it was better. The horror of it settled over Daniel like a shroud. They told you one of our daughters was dead. Maria nodded, a tear finally escaping. For 2 days, I believed I had one living daughter in the NICU. I was pumping milk for her. On the 3rd day, I was discharged. I went to the NICU. They said there was no baby Lopez there. I showed my bracelet. I caused a scene. Security came. A social worker came. She showed me this paper. She said I was confused, grieving, that I needed to go home and rest. I had no family here, no money. I went to a shelter. Daniel could barely process it. It was a classic monstrous play, steal the Barbies and tell the mother they died. It happened. The research he'd done after Leo's call confirmed it, historical cases, but it happened. How did you find them? Find us. Months later, Maria said, wiping her cheek. I got a job cleaning at a law office. One of the lawyers left a file open. It was about a private adoption finalization. Sterling. I remembered the name from the discharge paper, the doctor's messy signature next to a printed name. Dr. Aris, referred by V. Sterling. I looked you up. I saw your picture in a magazine. A billionaire with new twin girls. I knew. In my soul, I knew. So you came to work for us. I had to be near them. I had to know they were safe. I thought if I was good, if you saw me with them, you would feel something was wrong. You would ask questions, but you didn't. And your wife, she knew who I was the moment she saw me. She told me if I ever said a word, she would have me deported. And then she would make sure you never saw the girls again either. She said you would believe her, not me. She said she owned the hospital, the doctors, the judges. The pieces slammed together with brutal force. Victoria's story was a lie. This was not a gray area adoption. This was kidnapping, fraud, medical coercion, and she had used his own status, his own frozen sperm, as the ultimate cover. He was not just a victim, he was an unwitting instrument. "Maria, I am going to fix this," Daniel said, the words of vow. "I am going to get you your daughters back." She looked at him with a hope so fragile it shattered him. "How? She has all the papers. She is powerful." "I am more powerful," Daniel said, and for the first time since opening that report, he felt a clear, cold purpose. "And I have the one thing she can't forge, the truth." He left Maria's garage with the forged death certificate in his pocket. His first call was to the most ruthless family law attorney in California, a woman named Claudia Vance, known for eviscerating liars in custody battles. His second call was to Leo. "I need a full forensic team. I want every piece of Victoria's financial records, every communication with Cedars-Sinai Hospital, every payment to any doctor named Aris for the last 5 years. And I want a security detail on Maria Lopez right now. She is not to be out of your sight." By the next morning, the machinery of Daniel's wealth and rage was in motion. Claudia Vance listened to the story, examined the DNA report and the fake death certificate, and smiled a wolfish smile. "This isn't a custody case, Mr. Sterling. This is a criminal conspiracy. We're going to the district attorney, and we're going to the press." Victoria must have sensed the shift in the tectonic plates of her world. She confronted Daniel at breakfast, the twins playing in the next room. "Have you come to your senses?" she asked, her voice sweetly poisonous. "I have," Daniel said, not looking up from his coffee. "I'm filing for emergency sole custody today, and I've referred evidence of kidnapping, fraud, and coercion to the district attorney's office. Your lawyer will be contacted." The color drained from her face. "You can't be serious. You'll be dragged through the mud. The girls will be traumatized." "They already are, Victoria. They've been living a trauma their entire lives." He finally looked at her. "You have one chance. Walk away. Voluntarily terminate your parental rights. Admit to the private surrogacy story. I will give you a settlement and you can disappear. Fight me, and I will use every resource I have to see you in prison." For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then she leaned in, her voice a low, vicious whisper. "You have no idea what you've started. You think this is just about me? There are other families, other satisfied clients. You're not threatening a woman, Daniel. You're threatening a system, and systems protect themselves." She pushed back from the table, her composure eerily restored. "My lawyer will be in touch." Her words echoed in his mind. Other families, other satisfied clients, a system. Was this bigger than Victoria? Was she just a client of something far more organized? The answer came faster than he expected. That afternoon, as Claudia Vance was preparing the custody filing, a sealed envelope was delivered to Daniel's office by courier. No return address. Inside was a single photograph. It was of Maria, taken yesterday outside her garage, talking to Leo. Below it, typed, was a message. "Cease all actions, drop the claims, the girls remain with the mother, or the biological mother meets with a real accident. This is your only warning, you are being watched." Daniel stared at the photograph and the typed threat, the cold, professional menace of it cutting through his rage. This wasn't Victoria's style. She dealt in social annihilation and legal chess, not blunt force threats. Someone else was on the board, and Maria was in the crosshairs. He called Leo, his voice taut. "The Panorama City location is blown. Extract Maria now. Use the secondary safe house. No one follows you." "On it," Leo responded, the line already clicking with activity. Next, Daniel called Claudia Vance. He read her the threat. "They've escalated to direct intimidation," he said. "Good," Claudia replied, her tone chillingly calm. "It's a gift. It proves conspiracy. It proves they're scared. We take this straight to the DA's cybercrimes unit. This isn't a custody filing anymore, Daniel. This is a racketeering investigation." But the system Victoria warned him about moved faster. Within the hour, a restraining order landed via email. Victoria Sterling versus Daniel Sterling. Emergency request to prevent the removal of the minor children from the marital home. Allegations, emotional instability, attempted kidnapping with a known criminal accomplice, Maria Lopez. Attached were grainy photos of Daniel entering Maria's garage and affidavits from concerned staff about his recent erratic behavior. It was a preemptive strike, masterfully played. The family court judge, a man who moved in the same circles as Victoria's charity board, granted a temporary order. Daniel was barred from taking the girls out of Victoria's custody. He could see them, but only under supervision. He was now a legal risk in his own home. The twins felt the tension. That evening, Isabella asked, "Daddy, why is the new lady always watching us play?" The new lady was a stern-faced social worker stationed in the corner of the playroom, a requirement of the order. Daniel's heart shattered. He was being framed as the danger in their lives. Leo reported success. Maria was secure in a guarded apartment in a nondescript building downtown, terrified but safe. The forensic team, meanwhile, hit a wall. Dr. Aris had retired from Cedars-Sinai 2 years ago and had moved to Costa Rica. The trail was cold. The private adoption paperwork Victoria referenced was filed with a now-defunct agency, its records lost in a fire. The system was covering its tracks. Daniel felt the walls closing in. He was richer, but Victoria was more connected. She had spent years weaving a web of favors and dependencies in Lowe's, Angel's, legal, and social strata. He was the outsider with money, she was the insider with influence. Then the break came, not from his pricey investigators, but from Maria. Safe in the apartment, provided with a secure laptop, she had begun scrolling through every photo, every news clipping, every memory she could find online about the Sterling twins. She was searching for her stolen moments, and she found something else. She called Daniel, her voice shaking with a new kind of fear. "Mr. Sterling, the pictures from the charity gala last year, the one in the newspaper." Daniel pulled it up. There was the family, him, Victoria, the twins in matching dresses, standard society page fare. Look at the woman behind Victoria, in the black dress, with the short hair. Daniel zoomed in. Behind Victoria, glass in hand, was a woman in her 50s with a sharp, intelligent face. He didn't recognize her. "Do you know her?" he asked. "I saw her at the hospital," Maria whispered. "The morning after I gave birth. She was outside my room talking to Dr. Aris. She was not a doctor, she was holding a briefcase." Daniel had Leo run facial recognition. The result came back in minutes. Dr. Evelyn Roth, not an obgyn, a renowned reproductive endocrinologist and fertility specialist, the founder of The Garden, a boutique, ultra-exclusive fertility and family consulting service in Beverly Hills, the kind that didn't advertise, the kind you were referred to. The Garden, Victoria's words echoed, other satisfied clients. Daniel's blood went cold. This wasn't just a one-time crime of opportunity. This was a service, a black market operation for the elite who couldn't have children and didn't want the hassle of international adoption or the transparency of legal surrogacy. Steal a baby from a vulnerable mother, forge the death, create flawless adoption papers, and Victoria was a client. He immediately diverted the forensic team. "Forget the hospital. I want everything on The Garden. Evelyn Roth, all her clients, all her finances, her partnerships." The deeper they dug, the more horrifying the picture became. The Garden wasn't just a clinic, it was a network. It had ties to a specific hospital wing at Cedars-Sinai, a few corrupt social workers, a judge in family court, and a shell company that handled the legal fees. They preyed on specific targets: undocumented immigrants, women in crisis shelters, addicts, mothers whose disappearance or claims would not be believed. And they had been operating for nearly a decade. Daniel was no longer fighting for custody of his daughters. He was standing at the edge of a monstrous conspiracy, and his wife was a card-carrying member. Going public would no longer just be a scandal. It would be an earthquake that would bring down judges, doctors, and probably get him killed. Victoria summoned him to the library that night. The social worker was dismissed. She poured 2 glasses of scotch, handing him one. "I hear you've been digging in gardens, Daniel. It's a dangerous hobby. You might find snakes. You sold our daughters to me, Victoria. You bought them from a criminal network. You are not their mother, you're their trafficker." She sipped her drink, unfazed. Such ugly words. We wanted a family, they provided one. Everyone was compensated, even Maria. She got a job, didn't she? A roof over her head near her children, more than she had. The sheer, breathtaking inhumanity of it left him speechless. Here is the new reality, she continued, setting down her glass. You will dismiss your lawyers. You will sign a statement affirming the surrogacy story. You will join me in a press conference about the beautiful, if unconventional, way we built our family. We will be pioneers. In return, I will allow you to remain in this house. You can see the girls. We will maintain the appearance. And Maria will receive a very generous trust fund, on the condition she returns to Guatemala and never speaks of this again. And if I refuse, then the restraining order becomes permanent. I will use every resource of the Garden's network to paint you as an unstable, violent man who is collaborating with a mentally ill immigrant to kidnap children. You will never see Sophia or Isabella again. And Maria, she let the sentence hang. Accidents happen, even in safe houses. She was offering him a gilded cage, a life inside the lie with access to his children. The alternative was a war he might not win and the potential death of an innocent woman. He left the room without answering. He went to his study, to the one piece of real evidence he had, the fake death certificate. He looked at the scrawled signature of Dr. Aris, and he realized something. The note about infant fatality was written on a separate, glued-on piece of hospital letterhead. The rest of the form was pristine. It was a crude cut-and-paste job, a physical forgery. He called Claudia. We need a document forensics expert, now. The expert arrived at the safe house at midnight. Under specialized light, the truth glowed. The paper and ink for the main form were consistent. The added fatality note, different ink, different paper stock, added later. It was definitive proof the document had been altered post-discharge. It was proof of fraud. It was their first real, tangible weapon against the network. Claudia was ecstatic. This is it. This is the thread we pull. We go to the FBI. This is interstate fraud, kidnapping, racketeering. The DA is too local. This network has tentacles. We go federal. Daniel authorized it. The packet, the DNA tests, Maria's testimony, the forensic analysis of the death certificate, and the initial findings on the garden was encrypted and sent to a specific agent at the FBI's Los Angeles field office who specialized in organized crime. The response was not what he expected. 3 hours later, his home phone rang. A blocked number, he answered. A calm male voice spoke. Mr. Sterling, you've been very busy. Your package has been received. We advise you to stand down. This matter is complex. The interests involved are significant. For the well-being of your children, withdraw your complaints. The garden will be dealt with internally. Daniel was stunned. Who is this? The situation is contained. Continue your actions, and the custody order will become the least of your concerns. Good night. The call disconnected. The message was clear. The network didn't just include doctors and judges. It had reached inside the very agencies meant to investigate it. They were untouchable. He was trapped. The law couldn't help him. The police couldn't help him. He was alone against a hydra. The next morning, the doorbell rang. It was a courier with a single manila envelope. No markings. Inside were 8 photographs. They were of other children at parks, in schoolyards, at homes, all different ages. At the bottom of each photo was a family name. Powerful names, political names, media names. The note on top read, think of the trauma, think of the families, stand down. You are not saving 2 children. You are destroying 2 dozen. Are you prepared to be that monster? It was the wait, it gets worse moment. This wasn't just about Sophia and Isabella. Unraveling the garden would tear apart dozens of families, expose dozens of stolen children, and shatter the lives of every kid in those photos. The network wasn't threatening him with violence now. They were threatening him with an unimaginable moral catastrophe. Could he destroy 2 dozen innocent children to save his 2? He showed the photos to Claudia, who went pale. This is thermonuclear, she breathed. They're calling your bluff. They're saying the collateral damage will be on your soul. Daniel retreated to his study, the weight of the decision crushing him. He looked at a picture of Sophia and Isabella on his desk, their smiles, their truth, and he thought of the other children in the photos, living their own lives, loving the parents they believed were theirs. What gave him the right to detonate their worlds? He was paralyzed. Every path led to ruin. And that's when Leo called, his voice urgent, stripped of its usual calm. "Daniel, we have a problem. The safe house. It's been compromised. They took Maria. They left a note." Daniel's world stopped. What did it say? Leo's voice was grim. "It says, a trade, the mother for the children. Stand down or she dies on camera. You have 24 hours. They had Maria, the one person who knew the whole truth, who was the living heart of this tragedy. They had her, and they were going to kill her to force his surrender. The cold calculus of the previous moment vanished, burned away by a more primal fire. This was no longer a debate about morals or collateral damage. This was a direct declaration of war. They had the woman who was the biological mother of his children. They had crossed a line from which there was no return. Daniel Sterling stood up. The paralysis was gone, replaced by a cold, focused fury. They had made a fatal mistake. They had taken this out of the shadows and made it personal. Now, he would stop playing by their rules. He would stop using lawyers and detectives. He picked up his phone. It was time to use his wealth not as a shield, but as a weapon. It was time to go to war. Daniel didn't call the police. He didn't call his lawyers. He called 3 men whose names weren't in any phone book and whose services weren't billed by the hour. When money can't buy justice, it can buy something else: leverage. And Daniel Sterling was about to leverage the one thing the Garden couldn't afford: exposure on their own terms. His first call was to a former Mossad operative turned private intelligence broker. His second was to a cybersecurity wizard who had once shut down a nation-state attack. His third was to the producer of the most-watched investigative news program in America, a woman who owed him a favor from when he quietly saved her network from bankruptcy. The instructions were simple: find Maria, trace the threat to its source, and prepare a broadcast-ready package that would air the moment he gave the signal. While that machinery whirred to life, Daniel did something seemingly passive. He sent a one-line email to Victoria and to the anonymous FBI contact. "I am standing down. I want to negotiate the terms of silence." It was bait, and they took it. A meeting was arranged for that night at a neutral location, a private club downtown. Victoria arrived with a man Daniel didn't recognize, tall, polished, with the calm eyes of a fixer. This was the face of the Garden's protection. Daniel came alone, wearing a watch that wasn't just a watch. "You've made the smart choice," the fixer began, not offering a name. "The alternative was messy. Now we discuss transition. The children remain with Mrs. Sterling. You will undergo voluntary psychiatric evaluation to explain your recent instability. Miss Lopez will be provided passage home with a substantial settlement, contingent on her signed non-disclosure." Daniel nodded slowly, playing the defeated man. "And the other families, the photos you sent me?" "The ecosystem remains intact," the fixer said smoothly. "No further trauma is necessary. This concludes our business." Victoria allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. It was the last smile she would have for a very long time. Because at that moment, Daniel's phone buzzed once. A text from the cybersecurity wizard: "Packet received, source traced, we have the vault." The watch on Daniel's wrist had recorded every word, and the hacker had just penetrated the Garden's internal server, locating their true client list and financial records, the vault. Daniel looked at the fixer. "How much does a child cost in your ecosystem?" 50,000, 100. "What's the price for a life you erase?" The fixer's eyes narrowed. "This conversation is over." "No," Daniel said, standing up. "It's just beginning. You have Maria. I have every name on your client list, every wire transfer, every forged document from the last 9 years. And in 30 minutes, a news crew will have it all. You wanted to avoid trauma, you just guaranteed it." Victoria's composure broke. "You're bluffing. They own the FBI, they own the judges." "Then I'll go over their heads," Daniel said, his voice cold. "To the public, to every parent in those photos you sent me. Let them decide if they want to live a lie or fight for the truth." The fixer stood, his hand moving toward his jacket. Daniel didn't flinch. The recording is streaming live to 3 separate servers. Shoot me and it auto-releases. Your move. The man froze. For the first time, Daniel saw uncertainty in those calm eyes. The system was built on secrecy, not open warfare. Daniel's phone rang. It was the Mossad operative. "We have the mother. Warehouse District, Dock 14. She's alive. We're extracting now." He looked at Victoria and the fixer. "It's over. You're going to walk out of here, and you're going to tell every member of your ecosystem that the clock is ticking. They have one chance to come forward voluntarily to the authorities I choose before the world knows everything." He turned and walked out, leaving them in the silent, opulent room. The trap had been sprung. What followed wasn't a quiet surrender, but a calculated demolition. Daniel's team released the first wave of information not to the press, but to the clients themselves. One by one, emails arrived in the inboxes of powerful people across the country, containing only their own transaction history with the garden and a link to a secure portal. The message was clear: exposure is imminent. Cooperate or be destroyed. Panic is a powerful solvent. The garden's wall of solidarity cracked. A senator from New York was the first to call the number left in the email, seeking immunity. A tech CEO followed, then a famous actress. They provided names, details, records, each one turning state's witness to save themselves. With this avalanche of evidence from inside the network, the real FBI, a different, clean branch out of Washington, moved in. Warrants were served simultaneously on the garden's offices, Dr. Evelyn Roth's home, and the corrupt judge's chambers. The local DA, who had been compromised, was arrested at his club. Victoria was taken from the mansion in handcuffs the next morning, her screams echoing through the foyer as Sophia and Isabella watched from the top of the stairs, clinging to their nanny. Daniel held them, shielding their eyes, whispering that Mommy was sick and needed help. It was the first of many painful conversations to come. The most delicate operation was the reunification. Maria was brought to Daniel's home, clean, fed, but trembling with post-traumatic stress. The twins were confused. This was Maria, who used to clean their room, but now Daddy was crying and holding her hands. Child psychologists oversaw the first introduction. Maria didn't rush them. She just sat on the floor and began quietly singing a lullaby in Spanish, the same one she'd sung to them as infants. Isabella, the more intuitive twin, stopped playing and stared. She walked over, touched Maria's cheek and said, "You singed that before, in my dream." That moment, captured by none of the cameras, was the beginning. There was no instant magical bond, but a slow, careful rebuilding. Maria moved into the guest house. She joined them for meals. She read stories. The legal process to terminate Victoria's rights and establish Maria's maternity began, supported by the mountain of evidence and the twins' own DNA. But the final, shocking detail emerged from the forensic accounting of the garden. When investigators traced the original payment for the twins, they found it didn't come from Victoria's account alone. It was split, half from Victoria, and half from an offshore trust linked to Daniel's own father. The old man, long retired and living in Switzerland, had known. He had approved. He had funded half the cost because he wanted grandchildren, and his daughter-in-law's social standing was more important to the family legacy than how the children were obtained. The betrayal was generational. Daniel confronted his father over a secured video line. The old man didn't deny it. "You were obsessed with your work. Victoria provided the solution. We secured the lineage. It was business." Daniel disconnected and never spoke to him again. Some roots are too poisoned to save. The public fallout was seismic. The story dominated headlines for months. The Garden of Lies, the baby brokers of Beverly Hills. Over 24 children were eventually identified as victims, their cases leading to a federal task force and new legislation dubbed Maria's Law, tightening private adoption and surrogacy regulations. In the end, the courts moved with surprising speed, given the magnitude of the crime. Victoria Sterling pled guilty to conspiracy, kidnapping, and fraud in exchange for testimony against the network's ringleaders. She was sentenced to 25 years. Dr. Evelyn Roth received life. The fixer and the corrupt judge received decades. Daniel was granted full legal and physical custody. Maria's parental rights were restored in a quiet courtroom ceremony where both girls held her hands. The official paperwork listed them as Sofia Sterling Lopez and Isabella Sterling Lopez. The mansion sold. The memories were too heavy. Daniel, Maria, and the girls moved to a quieter, sun-drenched house by the ocean with a big yard and no staff. Maria became a full-time mother, her laughter slowly replacing the sadness in her eyes. Daniel scaled back his work, his priorities permanently rearranged. One evening, about a year later, Daniel found Maria on the back patio, watching the twins chase fireflies. She looked at him, her eyes peaceful. "They call me Mama Maria now," she said softly. "Not Mommy, but Mama, it's enough." Daniel put his arm around her. They weren't a couple. They were something else, co-parents bound by a trauma they had survived, building a real family from the ashes of a stolen one. The documentary crews eventually left. The headlines faded. But in that house by the sea, a mother finally got to raise her daughters, a father learned what family truly meant, and two little girls grew up knowing deeply that they were loved by the people who had fought the hardest to bring them home. The system designed to break them had failed, because sometimes the truth is a weapon, and sometimes it's the only foundation strong enough to build a new life on. So what do we make of a story like this? A story where family wasn't born, but built from the wreckage of a lie. For Daniel Sterling, the truth was a bomb that detonated his perfect world. But in the clearing smoke, he found something real. He learned that fatherhood isn't a biological receipt. It's a choice you make every single day. It's showing up. It's fighting for what's right, even when the cost is everything you thought you wanted. For Maria Lopez, it was a decade of stolen moments and silent suffering, a testament to a mother's love that no document could erase and no distance could diminish. Her victory wasn't in a courtroom, but in a backyard, hearing her daughters call her Mama. And for Sofia and Isabella, they inherited a complicated truth, but they also inherited something more valuable, the unwavering love of two parents who moved heaven and earth, who tore down a corrupt system just to give them an honest life. This case forced us to ask uncomfortable questions. What defines a parent? Is it genetics, or is it the relentless, daily act of love? How far would you go to uncover a truth that could shatter your world? And when we see a picture-perfect family, how often are we just seeing the frame and not the fractured canvas beneath? The garden of lies was ultimately plowed under. Maria's law now makes what happened to her nearly impossible, but the story's real legacy isn't legal reform. It's a reminder that the most dangerous lies are often the ones woven into the fabric of our daily lives, dressed as normalcy. And that courage isn't the absence of fear, but the decision that some truths are worth fearing for. We leave them there by the ocean. The mansion is gone, but the home remains. A father, a mother, and their daughters. A family forged not from convenience, but from choice, from truth. If this story made you question the surfaces in your own life, if it reminded you that depth matters more than display, then you understand why we tell these tales. Share your thoughts below. What would you have done in Daniel's position? And if you want more real stories that challenge everything you think you know, hit subscribe. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary truth is hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone brave enough to look.